On this episode of the Star Trek Universe podcast, we are talking Disco 206, The Sounds of Thunder, right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe podcast. My name's Matthew Carroll.
I am David C. Robertson.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, man.
So we have yet another episode of Star Trek Discovery.
Yeah. And that CBS All Access summary.
Yeah, give me that sweet, sweet summary. I need it. I need it in my veins.
It's so sweet. When a new signal appears over Saru's home planet, Burnham, Saru, and the crew embark on a perilous mission that puts Saru in danger and raises questions about the Red Angel's intentions. Hugh struggles to come to terms with his new reality.
Indeed.
I'm incredibly torn on this episode, man.
Yeah, there's me too. Me too. Okay. We should get some positives out of the way up front.
Oh, absolutely.
Because I feel like we always dive into the negatives first, and there are lots to like about this episode.
Yeah, I don't know that we always do on the negative first.
I feel like when there's negative, which not always there is. A lot of times we just talk about the positive, but when we have something negative, a lot of times we tend to dig down on it. So I really like the storyline. I like the Baul. I liked the analysis of the Baul and the mystery being solved, that they used to be a prey species that turned into a predator species. That was all real cool.
Yes, absolutely.
I actually was completely surprised by that. I thought they were going somewhere else with it. I was actually fully expecting a balance of terror twist on this episode. Because the whole thing with Saru, and I actually expected it super early in the episode when they talked about him getting teeth coming out of his neck. And then they talked about the Baul and how they were evolving, and then as soon as they said they'd never seen the Baul, I was like, oh my gosh, the Baul are what he's turning into. That's totally what I thought.
I thought it was more of a Sona Baku thing from Insurrection.
Right. Yeah. Same difference.
Similar thing.
But I thought it was going to be literally the same twist as in the original series, Balance of Terror, when we see the Baul for the first time, and it's just a Kelpian. Like, that's what I thought we were about to see. And then and then they really played it up. They even had him like coming out of that oil, and it was all like, they had him blurry in the background. I thought that oil was going to drip off and we were just going to see a Kelpian. And I was like, oh, it's coming. And then it wasn't, apparently.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. Like, Saru at the top of the episode says, what is a Kelpian without fear? A Baul.
Yeah, which I love that energy. And I'm still interested in the question of what is a Kelpian now, because apparently they were a predator species before, and Pike says it, who's to say they won't return to those ways?
Yeah, and I really like that question. And as far as like, what are any of us without our faith? You know, like, because he found out his faith was a lie. Yeah,
that's a really good point.
What does he become when he doesn't have that hand guiding him?
Yeah, even if your faith was not the truth. Like, if it was guiding you to be a better person, what do you become without it? That's a tricky question. And I think as people grow and change in their lives and have different relationships with their faith, that's a question a lot of us go through. I like that interpretation of this episode. I was just thinking it's interesting that they have the Kelpians are now this question mark as to whether they're going to continue to be the good guys.
Yes, I love that the Baul tell Saru, you have no idea what you are.
Yeah.
Like, and I think it's funny that without faith, he grows teeth. That's funny. Like, he's suddenly very, like, willing to put Pike in his place, stand up for himself, and kind of disastrous ways. Like, he's feeling his oats, man.
Oh yeah, for sure. That the whole Saru, it's what you were talking about wanting from the last episode. Saru being really out there and tough. And after that, I do agree with you. I feel like the only reason they didn't slot that last week's episode into next week's episode is because they just wanted to draw the comparison between Hugh and Saru at this moment. And I kind of wish they had that wasn't worth it to me. I wish they had just had this episode last week. Because it was weird to take a break from the Saru storyline. That seems like such a big change for Saru anyway. No,
I think an episode is good for a buffer.
Yeah. I that's true. I guess I like you said last week, I would have liked there to have been some reference to the fact that Saru was changing last week. That would have satisfied me. So let me talk about my big problem with this episode.
Oh, okay. Sure. I now let you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Dave.
Permission granted, I guess I should say.
Thank you, Commander. I think it's insane the way that decisions were made in this episode.
Absolutely.
And the way that Pike was a feckless captain in this episode. They talked around Pike, and Burnham made all the decisions. And Pike would nod every once in a while, but gave no pushback. And they radically changed the direction of a pre-warp species.
Yeah.
They did not. It's not like. The thing is, they don't know what Saru is going through. Earlier in the episode, they talk about Saru and how he's not even worthy to be on the bridge right now because they don't know how this is going to affect him. He's also not worthy to be on this away mission because they don't know what this whole, after now that he's gone through this process, what it's going to mean for his personality, his thought processes. Like, they don't know who Saru is.
That's right.
And they inflicted that sort of uncertainty on an entire species.
Yeah.
That's insane.
I agree. It's not unprecedented. I mean...
Sure. Absolutely.
It's not unprecedented in Star Trek. I mean, we all remember what Kirk's decisions were in the Apple. Your God is alive, basically.
Right. Right. And
it just boiled down to its essence.
It's definitely not unprecedented, especially, I think, in the original series. But I guess in most cases when those things happen, maybe not in the original series, sometimes I think they just weren't putting full thought into certain things.
I think there's a difference, and I think that, I believe that was true of the Apple and the Children of Vol. I think that's true here of the Kelpians. They were messed with by a warp species.
I agree completely. I like that they dug in on the question of General Order 1 and what it means in this circumstance. And we got an answer that 20 years ago, the Baul did get warp drive, so they could be messed with. But it was a fuzzy thing whether they were allowed to mess with the Kelpians. And that's the thing. It's like, it's a judgment call whether you're allowed to even talk to this species. You know what we should do? Let's radically change their entire species way of life and like even their internal thoughts. Like, let's take their fear away. That's crazy.
That is crazy. And I think that is like the writers were asked about that, and they were saying that like Pike absolutely knows that, and they wanted to get into that deeper, but they didn't have time. And their answer led me to believe that it will come about a little more in subsequent episodes.
I hope so.
At least I hope so. But, yeah, I think, like, from my own perspective, I think it didn't seem like Pike was feckless so much as he was trying to remain captain, and he did pretty, like, he was, pretty ballsy in telling Saru, get off the bridge, Yeah,
no, that's not where, like, I think he pushed back on Saru, but the part that bothered me was that he didn't push back on when they're making these big decisions for the Kelpians, when Burnham is, like, bouncing back and forth with Tilly and the other crew members, like, they didn't wait on the captain to give a final answer as to what they should do. They just did it.
That's right. I feel like Pike was kind of like going by what Saru was feeling, and I feel like he was somewhat doing that. He made a big decision to go for this, but I feel like he was kind of like trying to stay captain, but also stay woke. You know, like I can't begin to imagine what the hell Saru's going through. Maybe we'll go by what he thinks.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't think that's. I just don't think that's a good call.
Maybe not.
Based on the previous things he said in that episode, the fact that he said, Saru, you are the most complicated choice for this mission because you are going through a big change and you don't know, we don't know what you're thinking right now or what you're going through, and you haven't even figured out who you are. Like, it's a bad idea to send you. And then to just completely rely on his major decisions was strange.
Yeah. It was strange, but they did call it out. They hung the lantern in the episode that, like, they radically altered a species for generations to come.
Yeah. They definitely did. They definitely were clear about that. What I didn't like, I guess maybe it would have been better if the reason they did that was more of an existential threat to the entire species, because the reason they start doing that is just because they have Saru and Siriana trapped. Like, that's before all the, like, lasers are going through the eyes and all that stuff. All the obelisks are about to explode.
Yeah.
Like, they decide, that's the reason. Like, that's the thing I was thinking. When they decided to do that, I was like, well, aren't the Baul just going to exterminate this species? Like,
yeah,
that's immediately what I would think they would do.
But yeah, you can't really, like, not go for Saru and Sirana when you made that big speech last week about no one gets left behind.
Well, but they weren't going for Saru and Sirana. They were like, Saru and Sirana are trapped, and their answer to that is just to try to free the Kelpians from the Baul's grasp. I feel like they could have written this episode better, where somehow it was more like maybe they realized there was a plan going on to kill all the Kelpians and they were about to be exterminated anyway, and they needed them to rise up or something like that. Like something to precipitate this action. The way they did it was just so offhanded. But that's my big issue with the episode.
I have a number of issues. I want to understand why the Baul. Like, is there a benevolent motive to the Baul? Obviously, there has to be. Otherwise, they would have killed the Kelpians altogether, unless there's some sort of
resource or something.
Resource they're providing.
Yeah, we never got that, and we don't know if there was just purely a benevolent motive, like we need to control this species because they're so dangerous, but we also don't know what's happening to the Kelpians when they get cold. Are they just killing them all, or are they eating them? We know they're tasty, especially the ganglia.
Yeah, well, okay. The writers, they didn't say it in the episode. The writers, though, were asked, is there a reason the Baul kept the Kelpians around and built this whole elaborate system in mythology instead of just wiping out the potential threat? And the writers said, while the Baul were nearly hunted to extinction by the Kelpians, it doesn't mean they wanted to commit genocide. They have coexisted on this planet with the Kelpians for thousands of years, and in a twisted way, this is the balance that they have preserved via the calling. So they evidently they wanted to peacefully coexist, but they just didn't want to be the prey species.
Right. But to me, they were committing genocide.
I agree.
Slow genocide.
Just, it's like when you go outside and you prune your trees.
And it makes me think that, if your trees were sentient.
Maybe they are. We don't know.
It's true.
Stay woke, Matt.
Stay woke.
We've all seen Lord of the Rings. Well, I haven't.
The thing about it is, it makes the whole balance thing, from the Baul's perspective, I don't think the balance was a lie.
Yeah.
Because they said the whole reason they said they kill them is because after the process, I can't remember the name of the process. Do Do you remember?
I don't know, the culling. I don't remember what that's what I call it. I don't know what it's actually called.
Anyway, after their maturing process, it was said that they go mad.
Oh, the Valhari?
Yeah, the Valhari. After the Valhari, they go mad. And from the perspective of the Baul, that is true. They go mad and they become a predator species. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting to me that this whole thing about, and the Baul even start quoting about the great balance inside of their little stronghold when they're talking to Saru and Sarana. So I don't even think the Baul necessarily were the villains in this story by any means. Like they at least they didn't think of themselves that way. I don't think they were intentionally deceiving the Kelpians. I think they were being truthful. You go mad and become a horrible being once you go through this process. So we have to call you. Yeah. It's interesting stuff.
And we don't know if this is their final evolution.
The Kelpians?
Yeah.
True. That is true.
I mean, you don't even know what you're going to become. Just a dude with freaking spikes coming out. No, this has got to be more than that.
Well, no, I don't think we know the full extent. And that's my point about this whole changing the entire species. We know that now they have spikes in their heads, but we have no idea what else happens to them. Like what other effects we're going to see through this whole thing.
Yeah. I was a little confused. One, that Saru could so easily come up with a communication device, but hey, we kind of saw precedent for that in The Brightest Star.
Yeah.
Two, I don't understand how the Baul were so technologically advanced they had warp drive, but they couldn't just shut off the transmission from their little Legion of Doom headquarters.
Yeah, that was strange. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they apparently couldn't do it in The Brightest Star either. He was able to contact Starfleet and talk to them and learn their language. Mm-hmm. So the Baul apparently are not good at jamming communication or even apparently detecting communications.
Yeah. It's a little strange to me.
Oh yeah.
And also, I do want to say this episode, we were told that this episode would work well without The Brightest Star. I don't think it does. I think it works way better with The Brightest Star.
I think it works way better. They did show a little bit of The Brightest Star and give you a little bit of context. And with the last episode, he talks about the culling, or 2 episodes ago. So I think they gave enough context that if you're brand new to this, you'd at least know what's going on.
They even did a little retconning.
Oh, really? Where?
I have it in the trivia section, but in this episode, Saru says that Giorgio was serving aboard the Archimedes when she found him.
Yeah.
And in The Brightest Star, when she lands, the shuttle has the graphic SHN03, which means that it was the shuttle number 3 from the Shinjo.
Oh.
And when they showed it in this episode, they showed the same archive footage from this episode, from The Brightest Star in this episode, and they removed the SHN because technically it's now from the Archimedes.
Oh, wow. Well, that's kind of annoying, but whatever.
Right?
Yeah, that is annoying. I would rather them leave it on as SHN and then just say like, yeah, we had that shuttle borrowing from the Shinzo, whatever. Mm-hmm. Like I can headcanon around it. If you actually change what's on screen, I can't.
Yep.
Bad job, CBS. Bad job.
I mean, I kind of see it as the same thing as like, I'm not going to try to, headcanon why we see a cameraman sometimes in the panels on TNG.
Right. Sure.
Just move along home. Alan Moraine.
All right. What else happened this episode that we want to get into?
See, I prepared things for in case you had problems with the episode. But I don't know if I want to bring it up because I don't have a problem with these things.
Okay, so that's really funny that you're like.
It's one of the downfalls of being on Twitter a lot. It's because like people like pose questions and I'm like, that sounds like something Matt will bring up. I have an answer for that, and I make notes.
Go ahead, but you're making whole conversations that I'm not even bringing up.
All right, so I saw some people complain that it was stupid that Saru ran into his sister, and she was the first person he saw on the planet when they went home, and I just felt like he was looking for his dad, and he ran into his sister because she was now the priest.
He just went to the priest's house, and that was his sister. That's not a problem.
Yeah, I didn't see that as a big thing. I saw some people complaining that she met Michael and didn't have the ganglia come out, and I'm like, well, she didn't sense a threat.
She didn't sense death. It's not, they don't have fear for everything. We've seen in the past where he thought he should be fearful, but he'd reach back and his ganglia didn't do anything. And he's like, he was like, oh, I guess it's okay. Like it's a premonition sense. It's not a logical sense.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, anyway, I think, I would really like to know more about, the evolution of the Baul and the Kelpians.
Yeah. I think based on this episode, we're supposed to believe they're just two completely separate species. Based on, I think we got pretty strong evidence for that based on what we saw in those simulation rooms where the one species hunted the other one almost to extinction. Right.
I definitely felt like even though the freaking Baul looked like Armus from Skin of Evil, I think we were definitely meant to feel like the Baul aren't necessarily the bad guys here.
I don't know if we're meant to feel that way yet. I think part of what they were doing here is trying to show us a bad guy, and then maybe down the road we're supposed to feel that way.
My favorite villains are always the bad guys who do bad things but don't believe that they're the bad guys.
Sure, absolutely. Someone you can identify with. A Baul Ducat, as it were.
I would absolutely love it if they fleshed out the Baul over the course of the series.
Yeah, me too. Well, let's talk about what do you think about the Section 31 of it all, this episode, and the Red Angel. That's the two other big things.
Yeah.
The Red Angel and Section 31 and how all that interplays. I thought it was neat that we saw a little more of the Red Angel. It seems like it's a being in a suit.
Yes, and it looks like a woman's frame.
Oh, you think?
That might be a stuntman thing, but maybe it was just they needed maybe their stunt person was a woman. I don't know, but it looks like a woman.
I thought it looked like a CGI being. Like I thought it looked completely, nondescript. But that's.
If it's CGI and they purposely made it look that much like a female with his hips and stuff, that's even more telling.
Yeah, I didn't catch that it looked female to me, but yeah, it's very possible. Could be Michael.
That's what I thought. Like I didn't when I was watching it, I didn't think about it. I was just like, oh, man in suit. But, it's like, that is clearly a suit, a special futuristic suit.
Yeah.
And then looking at screenshots of it, I was just like, that looks like a lady's form.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess it kind of does. I'm pulling it up now. I did not notice that in the episode. But yeah, she definitely has those hips. That's some childbirth and hips there.
Oh, wow. Okay.
What? Red Angel has the Red Angel has some childbirth and hips.
We're going there with it. All right. I'm offended.
What? That's not an offensive term.
Just don't ever tell an individual woman that she has childbirthing hips, because they don't like that.
I'm not saying they'd like that. I'm not saying that's all they're for.
Right. Of course not.
They just got the wide hips, is all I'm saying. Okay, so I thought the whole conversation between Pike and Ash Tyler was super interesting, talking about whether the Red Angel, this new evidence about the Red Angel makes it more of a threat or more altruistic.
Yeah, that was cool. I liked that Pike thinks that they're paranoid. I love Tyler's response that they've just been at a war and some of us are still torn apart. Like, damn, dude.
Yeah, he's definitely torn apart.
And see, I think that's one of the reasons that Pike came off as so, as you put it, feckless, is that he is, at every turn in this episode, he is being questioned, and he is being made to question his own, like, knee-jerk responses to things.
I just felt like literally the way the crew was running. That's what I mean by feckless, is literally the way the crew was making decisions was completely bypassing the captain, even up until making a decision that changed a pre-warp species forever.
Yeah, and I think what we're seeing here, and maybe I'm giving the writers too much credit, I don't know. What I felt is they very much like set Pike up to be sort of an old-fashioned guy. Like we've heard a lot about his faith as he was growing up. We've heard about he likes the old view screens instead of holograms. And now he's being presented with situations where he doesn't know how to react because he's not Kelpian. He doesn't know how he should deal with this situation other than by means of being an old-timey Starfleet captain. He's got, he's looking for his first officer, but, his sister's on board and she's obviously like more emotionally invested than Pike would be. Like, I think he's just like on the sidelines because he feels like everything is moving way faster than him. And now he's got Section 31, an old classmate who's running in that circle. He's got this like brand new, maybe even Ash Tyler is somewhat an allegory for a transitioning person because he's both Klingon and human. So Pike doesn't trust him, but is he right to not trust him? Like, I think he's got a lot of shit going on.
I was thinking about that this episode. Does he know that Ash Tyler's part Klingon or Klingon? I don't think he does.
I don't know.
I was thinking about that.
I think he has to.
I think that's part of the.
I think he has to.
Maybe. I don't know why he has to. I don't remember the truth of it, but I don't remember them discussing that specifically. And I think that might be one of those things that Burnham hasn't told him because it's classified.
I don't know that that's because he knew that he was with L'Rell, and he knew that he snapped Culber's neck.
Oh, did he? Okay, then yeah, he probably does know all that.
That's why he doesn't trust him.
Okay, cool. I didn't remember that. I just thought he didn't trust him because he was Section 31.
Well, I think that Pike is dealing with a situation of he's not with it.
He's not able to handle this sort of scenario.
Yeah, like I think he is deferring to more experienced judgment calls from other people because he feels behind the times.
Yeah.
I think that might be something they're pushing towards. Hey,
did I tell you this week I want to thank them on this cast too. I thanked them on the MCU cast. Some of our listeners, Trella and Mike, they came out to my show this weekend, which I thought was the coolest. Like, I don't think I've ever had people that just know us from the podcast, like, come out to a show. For those of you who don't know, I'm a musician. That's what I do for a living. So I was playing in Atlanta last weekend, and they showed up at the show and listened, and I thought that was super rad. But Mike brought up a theory. He wanted to point out the fact that the Red Angel and Spock and time travel lead him to believe that all of this has to do something with the red matter from the Star Trek 2009.
Okay.
What do you think of that?
That was kind of a vague thought that I had a few weeks ago about, like, I was just like, oh, that's funny, Spock and Red Angel and Spock and red matter and time travel. Yeah, I wonder if that's going to pan out.
It does seem like it's possible that
Kurtzman is involved with this as well.
Yeah, that's the other thing, Kurtzman. Yeah, sorry, I was thinking about, like, there's a lot of little connections there. After he left me, I was sitting there playing my set. It's really funny when I'm playing my set, I'm playing like pop songs and I'm really in my head and running through like Star Trek theories. I'm like playing a Justin Timberlake song and I'm up there like, but what if Kurtzman is involved in the red matter and the Red Angel and it's just, and I'm like, cry me a river. But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting. It definitely has enough connections there to be sort of a viable theory.
Yeah, I don't like that. Would be neat if someone from the future was using the red matter to harness enough energy to time travel independently of a starship. That'd be neat. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, Spock did it with a pretty small ship.
Well, he didn't really do it with a small ship so much as he got sucked into
true.
He got sucked into the gravitational pull of the wormhole that it caused when he put the red matter into the Hoba star.
Yeah, that's true. What do you think? Do you think the Red Angel is benevolent?
I think it is. I think it's well-intentioned.
I would agree with that.
But I don't think it's going to turn out to be a good thing that this creature is doing it.
Right. So here's my theory for the season. Where we're going. We've got Section 31 who mistrusts this creature and who has shady and sometimes amoral motives and methods. And we have this Red Angel who's, doing pretty large things. I have a feeling that Section 31 is going to do something to stop the Red Angel or, do some sort of big thing to the Red Angel. But the Section 31 is just going to clearly be in the wrong, like just straight up in the wrong in the scenario, which might be one of the things that could say they actually caused the extermination of a species because they stopped the Red Angel from doing its work. And that could be one of the things that drives Section 31 underground. And then we get a Section 31 series that's like a spin-off and they've gone completely underground and it's more like what the traditional Section 31 we think of is.
Yeah, that's possible. I think that's probably a good call, but I also think that whatever they do that will drive them underground, they're going to do something drastic and terrible. But I think that no one is going to be right here. I don't think anyone's going to be in the right. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be everyone has a completely wrong assumption about the Red Angel. Like maybe Starfleet proper is too trusting. Pike and Burnham are too trusting. Section 31 is too paranoid. It's going to be like some sort of, that's why I think that like the Red Angel is going to be like well-intentioned, but ultimately going to screw everything up.
Yeah, I think it's a good point that I don't think the Red Angel is necessarily going to be completely in the right, because there's always unintended consequences to doing anything, and time travel is definitely one of those things. There's a lot of time travel, and a lot of major things have happened this season.
Yeah, it's keeping me interested though.
Yeah. It makes me, and obviously we talk about canon all the time, but this definitely could be a backdoor way of breaking us out of the regular canon.
Or it could be a backdoor way of fixing the canon.
Yeah, for sure. What is interesting to me about this time travel, this traveler's coming from the future, right? Mm-hmm. So we assume.
Maybe.
Right. I'm going to make some assumptions.
Well, they said it was more advanced than anything they had seen.
Right. Which could mean it's a time-traveling preserver. Who knows? Mm-hmm.
It's craft.
Yeah. The craft ain't got those hips.
Ooh. Ooh.
What?
Yeah, that's what I just thought about. What if it's Discovery, man? What if?
Yeah. No, absolutely. What did he name Discovery? In the future? He called her something.
I don't remember.
Or she called herself something.
She called herself something, probably from that Funny Face movie.
Maybe. She called him Funny Face. I don't remember what she called herself. Mm-hmm. Anyway, but yes, so maybe it is.
I doubt it. That's a silly thing.
Right. So if we assume this being is from the future, which I think is a pretty safe assumption.
Yeah.
Then like, look at it's traveling through this universe and going to any time that it could. It is going to a very specific time period. So all of these red signals that are happening in the sky, it seems like they're all pretty close together and causing these effects. It does make me think that that this red angel is somehow related to these events that are happening now. Like someone who is possibly Michael Burnham, possibly Pike, possibly anyone who is on the ship right now, who has gone forward into the future and is now keeps coming back to try to fix things.
That's a solid point, but, this Red Angel also deemed it necessary to go back in time to World War III and save a group of people. Absolutely.
And the only thing I thought about that same thing, and the only thing about that would be is if for some reason that planet they visited was necessary to the plan. So then then you also get into all kinds of causality issues where the reason they're going to these places is because of the Red Angel.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe that's part of it. Maybe the Red Angel is getting them to do certain things in a certain sequence to change history in a certain way.
Red Angel had to save those people for that time, for that version of the timeline to exist where some sort of paradoxical crap. If, like, the Red Angel is Michael Burnham, like, she's like, okay, well, I remember this, so this has to happen, so I have to go back in time and save these people from World War III and put them on this planet so that I can find them with Discovery.
Oh, actually, dude, I think we're right. I think it's Michael Burnham, and here's why.
Yeah.
Final episode of the season, she is the one that goes back and saves Spock as a boy.
Yeah. That makes perfect sense.
It'd be totally beautiful. Like, she's done something horrible to him as a boy. Whatever. We don't know what that was about yet. But then part of the resolution, maybe it never gets resolved. Their relationship never gets resolved in the current timeline. But somehow her going back and saving him as a boy is this, like, it's this thing she could do for him.
Yeah.
And maybe she's able to reveal to him that she's the Red Angel, and maybe he never reveals it to her. But yeah, I think that's not a bad idea that it's Michael Burnham.
Yeah, I think it's totally Michael Burnham. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, the idea of her rescuing Spock as a boy just seems, as much as they've dealt with their relationship this season, that seems like a beautifully poetic way of ending the season. It's something these writers would do. I don't know if I like it, but I think it might be the case.
Yeah, I think I agree with you.
I think it is at least someone from the ship, and then we narrow it from there. It's someone who has a vested interest in these particular points of interest, And
the writers have said that they were looking to explain why Spock never mentioned Michael.
What if she has to go back and save him and destroy herself in the past? What if she's like River Song style, living these events in reverse? And the last one is her going back to save Spock and remove herself from the timeline, which her being removed from the timeline could completely fix Discovery and line it back up into the current timeline, just because it would stop the Klingon War from happening, or at least that version of the Klingon War from happening. It could completely change the timeline.
Yeah. Maybe.
Of course, that would also mean removing Michael Burnham from this show.
Yeah.
Which is problematic at best. But they seem like they're wanting to make a different show every season, or at least so far. So that would be a real different show if Michael Burnham just suddenly never existed.
Or this version of Michael Burnham changes things so that you could still have Martin Green on the show, but she's a different version of Michael Burnham who still went to Starfleet, but never maybe wasn't Spock's sister, wasn't raised by Sarek. Right.
Then we see what are people like with different, nature versus nurture sort of thing. Like what's similar, what's different. That all sounds pretty interesting to me. But it also sort of sounds like hitting the reset button on a show that we've gotten to know these characters for 2 years. I would kind of hate to remove all of that.
It feels a little too much for me, like Fringe season 4.
Yes, totally.
And
that is exactly what I was thinking. Which
like no one remembers Peter but Peter.
I think it's about when Nimoy showed up too.
No, Nimoy was there from the get-go.
Oh, was he in Fringe?
He absolutely was. Absolutely.
No, dude, that's not true. Because I remember him showing up. Because the scientist, I forget his name, would always William Bell would always talk about his partner, and they never showed him until like the end of season 3. He like showed up in like the last reel of season 2 or 3.
Well, William Bell was Leonard Nimoy.
No, I know the other character showed up. I just remember very distinctly him showing up and being like, "Oh, of course it would be Leonard Nimoy as the other guy. That's so cool." I don't think he was on it from season 1. I may be wrong, but I'm willing to bet $5 on it.
Okay, well, you're wrong. He showed up in season 1. There's more than one of everything.
Which episode is that?
There's more than one of everything.
What part of the season?
Episode 20.
All right, like I said, he showed up in the last reel of the season. You said since the beginning. I say I'm right.
All right.
Anyway, that was fun.
You said season 3 or 4, jerk.
I said 2 or 3. It was end of 1. You said beginning. Yeah. Anyway, that was so you guys should watch Fringe. It's a pretty fun show, except for it gets weird toward the end and doesn't really.
Season 4 and 5 sucks.
It doesn't feel satisfying. It's
no
cool.
other way to say it. It sucks.
It sucks because I feel like when it gets to the most interesting stuff, to me, all the alternate reality stuff, it kind of abandons a lot of the character moments that it was good at.
Yeah.
Which may be what they did with Lost too, honestly. You know, it's like, it's all about characters in the beginning, and then they say it's all about characters in the end, but like, they really start diving into some nerdy stuff that I really enjoy, but they kind of lose some of the thread on some of the characters, I think. I
disagree on that they lose the thread of the characters in Lost, but you and I disagree on Lost. I'm pretty happy with it.
I'm mildly happy with it. All right, let's get back to Star Trek.
Yes.
I think that's about all I have to say about this episode. What, you got any quotes or trivia?
I do. Let's see. First up, some quotes. I liked Saru's. For 18 years, I dreamt of returning to my village. It has not changed at all, but I see it quite differently now. Yeah, I liked that. I think anyone who has ever like moved out of your hometown and then come back has felt that way. Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't change. The place doesn't change, but you change so much your perspective is different. It's cool. Yeah. I liked Pike here when he says, "This is Captain Pike. I will not allow you to wipe out an entire race. Your fear of the Kelpians has blinded you to a peaceful solution. Starfleet can help you negotiate a new balance between your two species, protecting everyone on your world. However, if you choose to murder the entire Kelpian population, you will become our enemies. Choose wisely." Yeah, that's my favorite Pike moment of this episode. I said he acted feckless, and I'd still stand by that, but that moment was badass. And my favorite quote of the episode comes from Pike. "Reese, hail those bastards." All right, some interesting trivia. I found this piece on IMDb, but I honestly no idea if it's true, but it's great if it is. Neither of the species on Kaminar are called Kaminari, but the episode was called "The Sounds of Thunder," and the Japanese word Kaminari means thunder. Huh. Neat. The Sounds of Kaminari. That's neat. And this was kind of a red flag. I noticed this in the episode. But yeah, Saru beamed down to the surface of Kaminar while the ship was on red alert. And the shields should not have allowed that transporter to happen. No good.
Is it possible to go to red alert without the shields up?
Supposedly not. That has been used as a plot point in previous episodes of Star Trek.
That's part of the red alert process, is just the shields automatically go up. Could be different for different ships too.
Yeah, I do know that I've heard Riker specifically say red alert, shields up, as if they were two separate actions.
Yeah. I thought I'd heard that.
So keep that in mind.
Oh, I will.
That's all I got, man.
That's cool, man. Well, guys, thank you for listening to the show tonight. It was fun. We got to it kind of late this week because, as I mentioned, I was playing in Atlanta all last weekend, so I just got to watch this episode on Tuesday. So next week, do we have an episode next week?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, I thought so.
Let me check.
How many are they doing in a row? Are they doing 8, or are they doing the whole season?
Let me check.
All right.
Yeah, we have one next week. It's 2/28, which is 2 days from now because we waited so late. So that's Light and Shadows. And then the next episode is March 7th.
Okay, so we got that's the next week, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And it looks like they're going straight through, honestly. Wait, March 7th and then the 14th and then 21st.
Great. So we'll be here every week for a while. So yeah, thanks for listening, guys. We'll be back next week and the week after and the week after. So yeah. Thanks for listening. Tell your friends if they like Star Trek and podcasts to check out our show, please. We're just now getting started, so it really helps out if you get a chance to go like us and review us and share us on the social medias, because we're still a new podcast, and me and Dave have both done this for years with other shows, and it takes a while to build an audience. And so if you get a chance to share this with your friends, please do. We'll be back next week. Talk to you soon. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at StarTrekUcast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.